All right, guys. Um, Listen, I know this isn't ideal, but we are going to go through some notes today, just over the stuff that we just covered. So basically, the module that we're currently on. Hopefully, everybody was able to get done with that little open notes quiz, the reading quiz that you had last night. If you had any questions or concerns about that, let me know. Um, Usually, email is probably the quickest way to get a hold of me. Just so you guys know, you can post stuff on Google Classroom, but I don't check that as regularly. So we're going to go ahead and pray like we normally would. I think we need some prayer right now. And then we're going to talk about chapter 18, the conservation of biodiversity primarily, what biodiversity is and why it's so important to us. So, if you guys, I know it's kind of odd, but if you would take a moment, bow with me as we go to the Lord. Let's pray. Lord God, I lift up this group to you that I'm not with personally right now, Lord, but we're all connected kind of in this odd way as we watch this video. And I just pray, Lord, that a blessing on them. I ask, Lord, that you be with them, that you help them through this challenging time. I know some of them, Lord, will have tasks now that they didn't have before. Some of them are helping their families by watching kids, by helping out around the house, as they are the ones that are home, and some of their parents probably are still at work. Lord, maybe their parents are at home and they get to spend more time with their families. Whatever it is, whatever the circumstances, Lord, be with them. Have your hand in that place. And Lord, I just pray that you, to help us to get through this interesting, odd time in our lives. Lord, I pray that everyone is safe and healthy. And those that aren't, Lord, may you give them blessing and may you ease their suffering. I ask, Lord, that you be with the world right now. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. All right, let's go ahead. Let's talk about what we're currently in. A lot of scientists say that we are in the sixth mass extinction. For those that don't know, there's been 5 before it. Here's a pretty famous one, the one that killed off the dinosaurs. About 65 million years ago, we don't really know, but we believe that a meteorite or asteroid, excuse me, is the better term, hit the Earth, and it was a catastrophic event that obviously caused the death of, I want to say it was like 90% of all the species on Earth. That's why it's called a mass extinction. Luckily, most organisms, or some organisms, always survive these, but when a huge percentage of the Earth species are extinguished in one fall swoop, that's considered a mass extinction. And we are currently right now, as some may have predicted, in the 6th mass extinction. Now, what's causing that? The reason we're considering it to be that is because we're losing 1,000 species per year to environmental change. And again, that sentence is a little bit, it's kind of masked there, but what's causing it is right there at the end: environmental change. And to be honest, the majority of that change comes from us. Okay, and I know I feel like everything in this class always falls back on us and our manipulation of the environment, and a lot of times even just global warming is sort of the easy answer as well. But it's true. You can't study the environment without studying our drastic impact on it, and unfortunately, our impact is usually negative. So all of this species change, this loss of species over time, is resulting in a net loss of biodiversity in most species. Why is that? Why is it the case? Why are species being impacted that are still here by ones that are no longer here? When an organism dies, it takes with it its genetic diversity. It takes with it its genes. So there's no way of passing those sometimes beneficial genes on to the next generation when that organism is no longer alive to do that. Okay. In order for genetic material to be passed, that's the definition of heredity. You have to have an organism that's able to not only survive but reproduce. Without the survival, there's no reproduction, and thus there's no passing on of that genetic material. Okay, so we end up with maybe there's a particular mutation in an individual that would help an organism survive a particular epidemic. Right now, how beneficial would it be if there was an organism that was capable of surviving higher temperatures across the board? Okay, pick the species. It doesn't matter what it is. If an organism has a genetic abnormality, a genetic, maybe it's a flaw, or maybe it's just a genetic sort of silent mutation that enables it to have this at one time untapped ability to withstand higher temperatures. That's going to be beneficial in the future as temperatures continue, I should say, to rise around the globe. That small, insignificant mutation could be the key feature, the key adaptation that helps an entire species survive, not just the organism in that species. So let's talk a little bit about genetic loss. Oh, by the way, guys, I'm going to go through this relatively quickly. With this, with the fact that I'm recording it, you guys have the ability to pause it and take the notes. Right now, you can pause this and you can get this down, and then you can listen to me talk. Hopefully, you're not going to fast forward through, but you can listen to me talk about it a little bit. I think this is beneficial. I think it's better than just reading from the book. So let's talk a little bit about this genetic diversity loss and kind of what it's causing. So sometimes genetic diversity loss is not the direct result of human intervention. So that kind of contradicts what I just said, that we are sort of the cause of all these things. But realize that I say sometimes, and I even have in parentheses there, but not often. Okay, most of the time it is us that is causing this lack of genetic diversity, which is really an indirect result of species dying off. Okay, so when we go in and we either hunt a species almost to the point of extinction, or we kill off its habitat by chopping down trees. As you guys can see, we have two images there. When we've done both of those, by the way. Okay, it wasn't long ago where we almost killed off the great American bison, buffalo. Do you guys know why we did that? Because it was considered like going on safari. People would take vacations, a few hundred years ago, less than that probably, and they would go into the West and they would find herds of buffalo and they would shoot them. There's stories, and by the way, they would just leave them there at that point. They didn't want to take them home. They just wanted to shoot them for sport. There are stories of people shooting them from trains as they drove by. Okay, I mean, obviously we don't do that kind of stuff today, but they drove that species almost to the brink of extinction. Did that result in genetic diversity loss? Absolutely. Of course it did. Okay, but today we're not as blatant as that. People don't like to hunt nearly as much as they used to. There's people that still hunt, and by the way, I'm not against hunting. Feel free to go shoot an animal. Just go and consume it as well. As long as you take it home and you process it and you eat it, I'm fine with that. It's people that kill just for the sake of sport, for the sake of killing, that I kind of have issues with. But again, a lot of people don't do that. We kind of frown at that now. We don't kill a lot of things just for the sake of that. Usually we do it, especially recreational hunting. We do it for the sake of getting deer meat, for example. The thing that really has impacted this genetic diversity loss, again, caused by the loss of species and organisms within a species, is habitat destruction. That's the main thing. That is probably the biggest driving force behind this. We are constantly going into an area and reaping the resources from that area and then leaving it in disarray, leaving it for secondary succession to take place. But secondary succession takes a really long time. So we take an ecosystem, we completely destroy it, we devastate it. The organisms that are alive in that ecosystem, they have to move on. They have to go somewhere else. If they don't, they won't survive. Because, for example, this deforestation. Listen. No matter how you look at it, the organisms that lived within those trees, they had to either A, they died, or B, they had to go somewhere else, hopefully in the surrounding forest. And there is still some available there, as you guys can see. But at the same time, and again, we kind of talk about sort of the issues with these arguments in this class often. I don't know what to say. We need wood. There's no way to using current building techniques, the ones that are most prominent, the ones that are cheapest, that's usually a stick design. So buildings are created with lots and lots of lumber. Okay, we could do timber designs rather than the stick design, and probably use a little less lumber, use a little less timber. But for the most part, wood is still going to be our most preferred use. Our most preferred material for building construction. It just always is. So there's always going to be a need for things like this where we deforest an area because we need to process that wood and use it for our own personal consumption. But there's always going to be the result of that destruction of that habitat is going to result in genetic diversity loss. There's just no way around it. I do have one example here. There are some organisms. We're actually kind of one of them. We don't have a ton of genetic diversity between us. It ranges from anywhere from 5 to as little as 0.05% that I've seen statistics say that from one person to the next, we are very similar. Cheetahs are another example of a very similar organism, genetically speaking. And the reason for that is because of a bottleneck effect. For those of you who don't know, that's where you take all of the genes or genomes within a species, and if you force it through a bottleneck, meaning that only certain ones survive, that means that the resulting genetic genomes are a lot fewer. So if you had 10 genomes in a bottle and then you dumped out a few at a time, it's going to go through that bottleneck and you're going to be left with only a handful of the original 10 genomes. So maybe 3 or 4 genomes, and then you have to use those genomes to create the rest of the species. So that apparently happened at some point 10,000 years ago, and because of that, cheetahs, like the one you see on the left there, is my left, I don't know if it'll be your left, are at much more of a genetic risk. They have a lot less genetic diversity. All right. We've also bred most of the species into extinction here. We've bred most of the genetic diversity out. So I'm going to let you guys get this down. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time, but if you want to pause it, go ahead. So there are 38 species of domesticated plant and animals around the world, 17% of the breeds within those species, and there's thousands of breeds within those species, but 17% of them are at risk of extinction. So when I think of this, I think of dogs more than anything else. Dogs have a huge amount of genetic variation between them, and we have tapped into that, and we've been able to create from the single domesticated wolf, originally, that's the father of the species, if you will, the Canis lupus. This single domesticated wolf, we've been able to take that species and change it and mold it for our own benefit. We've made dogs that are large and strong. We've made dogs that are small enough to fit in a lady's purse. I don't know why you want a dog in your purse, but okay, you know. We've changed those are both the same species. They're just simply different breeds. We've changed them to the point where they can't even interbreed. There's literally there's anatomical issues to the point that a Chihuahua cannot breed with a Saint Bernard. It's just impossible. And yet we've been able to create those different organisms, and still they maintain the same species. They're both canines. So how did we do that? Well, we did it through selective breeding. We were able to take those dogs, and again, we selected for particular traits that we wanted, and we bred for those traits. It's pretty easy to understand. If you want a really tall dog, I think the record for the tallest dog right now is held by a lab. It has been held in the past by Irish wolfhounds primarily. Those are really tall dogs. But if you want a tall dog, like a dog that stands, if you put it on its hind legs, stands 6-7 feet tall, you need to breed for height. Okay? And you don't measure a dog, by the way, from its hind legs. You measure it from the base of its front legs to the tip of its snout. You breed for height. So you take a male dog that is tall and a female dog that is tall, and you breed, and hopefully their puppies will inherit those genetic traits and be even taller than their parents. You continue doing that for, a few hundred generations, and you're going to end up with puppies that are going to grow into really tall dogs. We've done this with not only dogs, but with a lot of other species. We've bred for specific things. We want cows to produce more milk. We want chickens to have more meat on them. And this is good because it results in a chicken that can yield more food and thus feed more people. It results in a cow that can produce gallons of milk per day rather than just ounces of milk per day. That's beneficial. I like that I can go to the store and get a gallon of milk for $2.50. My kids love milk. It works out really well. The issue, though, is that when you breed them like that for very specific traits, you lose a lot of genetic diversity in the process. And then, again, it's true with dogs. The The Saint Bernard, well, not the Saint Bernard. Let's use the largest dog, the Great Dane. Whew, man, memory is failing me there. Great Dane is the biggest dog you can get. The average life expectancy for a Great Dane is under 10 years. It's about 7 years of life. Okay? When I was growing up, I had a mutt that lived next door to us. It was my aunt's dog. And he actually, his name was Happy. He lived till he was like 17 years old. Okay? How can he get 10 more years of life when a Great Dane can only live for 7? Okay? It's all about genetic diversity. Happy, the dog that died at 17, had a lot more genetic diversity because it was a mutt, where a purebred Great Dane is going to be bred. It's going to be probably inbred. It's going to be bred from probably close relatives, which is going to result in a very small amount of genetic diversity, if any at all, which is going to make it more susceptible to disease, more susceptible to genetic disorders, more susceptible to any sort of environmental change. And this is what we're doing right now with all of the species that we've domesticated. We're breeding so much for specific traits that we are inadvertently causing those species to become threatened or near threatened because they don't have the genetic diversity to withstand any sort of environmental change. Okay, I've said it before. Corn, as we have domesticated it, cannot grow on its own. It has to have a farmer's intervention. So, some of the results of this is what we've been able to do with domestication and selective breeding. Okay, you can see actual corn, actual maize over here on the left. This is what we get now. If you go to the grocery store, this is what you expect. And listen, there's nothing wrong with this. This is providing for lots of people. It's providing nutrients. This is in all of your sodas. It's in your chips. It's a viable source. We put it in our gas tanks, for crying out loud. The more corn we grow, the better. But that means that this corn is not going to grow as well on its own like this corn because it has a lot less genetic diversity. We have selected for very specific traits, very sweet, very large kernels. Because of that, if there's a drought or a flood, this corn here, is more susceptible to that. This corn dies. These corns survive. Okay? Again, domestication and selective breeding. This is a wild strawberry. It's a really big, this is actually just a homegrown strawberry, but wild strawberries are even smaller than this. You've seen them probably in some people's lawns. Here's a store-bought strawberry. Obviously, a lot different, okay, in terms of size. This one is not going to survive nearly as well if the environment changes. Chickens are almost creepy, okay? We have increased the size of chickens drastically over the last 50 to 60 years. And listen, that's nice, okay? There's something good about that, though. That chicken on the right can feed more people than the chicken on the left. That's a good thing. The issue is we have chickens that are so big now they can't walk on their own. Okay, so we're starting to see some negative side effects to that. These chickens are more susceptible to disease, the bigger ones obviously, more susceptible to disease to the point that we have to actually give them a lot more medications to mitigate that, to stop that disease from occurring. So there's benefits to it, but there's also downsides. All right, so the downside mainly is species decline. And this isn't just for domesticated species. We're talking about all species. Lots of species are in decline right now. And these are the terms that you're going to use and you're going to hear when we talk about species decline. We're going to hear threatened species. We're going to hear near threatened species. We're going to hear least concerned species. These are slightly new. When I was a kid, it was always threatened, endangered, severe endangered. And if you go to the zoo or something like that, they will actually show you on the little plaques of the animal that you're looking at if it's threatened or if it's endangered or what have you. But these are more kind of newer terms. Threatened means to have high risk of extinction in the future. Again, endangered would be the term that I would think of. Near threatened is likely to become threatened in the future. And then least concerned species are widely spread and abundant. Definitely not a problem. I wanted to point out amphibians a little bit. So they're experiencing a huge global decline. 50% are threatened or near threatened. And you might sit there and say, well, why? And by the way, for those of you who don't know, when I say amphibians, I'm talking about like frogs and certain salamanders and things that basically have that amazing ability to go from sea-dwelling or water-dwelling organisms to land-dwelling organisms. So they make that transition throughout their life, which is really cool. They're very unique, very interesting. We dissect them every year. Here I am saying they're unique and interesting, and we kill hundreds of them so that we can dissect them. But it's because we want to learn more about them. By the way, those frogs are bred and raised specifically for that purpose. So I'm not taking away from the natural amphibian population. So what's causing this? Mainly, it's habitat destruction. That is the number one cause. We are taking away wetlands. Okay, we do that at an astounding rate. Places like Florida, that is literally half of Florida was at one time wetland. We're constantly building it up, creating more space for people to live. Old people like to go down there and live out the rest of their life. They like that because it's warm. You got to have land in order to provide for that need. And we do that because it's cost effective. If somebody wants to go and take away part of a naturally occurring swampland and develop it for the mass market, and then old people want to go down there and purchase, I say old people, lots of people go down there and purchase that land and then build houses on it, there is an economic benefit to that. You're going to make money doing that. And again, I've told you guys before, money drives everything. So we will destroy that habitat for the sake of that. And the ones that are most hit by that are the animals that not only rely on dry land but also wetland. They have to have both. Okay, so you're talking about a very unique, very specialized organism that requires at different stages of its life different types of environment. Okay, so without that, because they're so specialized, because they need so much different types of habitat, they are very susceptible to habitat destruction. And finally, the other one, which is even more kind of interesting, is environmental change vulnerability. These are organisms that do not do well to environmental change. They breathe, 50% of their breathing comes through their skin. So we're talking about a very thin-skinned organism. If you've ever dissected one, you know their skin is millimeters thick. It's not even that, okay? Where you can grab your skin and it feels kind of thick, especially in certain areas, they are not the same way. Okay, so they are very susceptible to, they absorb a lot through their skin. So obviously, if you're living in a wetland and you have chemical runoff, it's going to go to the lowest point. It's going to settle in those natural water reserves, those natural waterways where frogs spend the majority of their life. So because of that, those chemicals, those pesticides, those fertilizers, they're going to bioaccumulate in these watersheds, and then the frog, who has this really really thin protective layer of skin, is going to absorb most of those chemicals, and they are going to die as a result of it. You can have some organisms that can live in that environment with those chemicals and be fine, but a thin-skinned amphibian is not going to be able to do that because they're just so exposed to the environment that they live in. All right, so why is this a concern? We only got 2 slides left, guys. Bear with me. We're going to try to knock this out in under 25 minutes. Again, pause the video if you need to get these notes in. So why is this a concern? Well, first off, there's intrinsic value and there's instrumental value, and I just want to kind of quickly define the terms. Intrinsic value is hopefully what we all have for the environment. It's considered valuable despite its benefit or lack of benefit to humans. I hope that we look over, guys, and I really do. I hope we look over at any sort of vista, any sort of landscape, and you enjoy that you look at the beauty in nature, the beauty in the environment, and you see the value in it despite yourself. Okay, almost some people will take this to the extreme where they want to take humans out of it because they just want nature to thrive on its own without our intervention, without our need to change it. So there's always that intrinsic value, and I think most people say that there is an intrinsic value to the earth. There's an intrinsic value to nature. Even the Bible, states that the heaven and earth declares God's majesty. It's hard for me to go. I've been to really pretty places in my life. I've been fortunate. It's hard for me to go to things like the Grand Canyon and not look out and just see the beauty and wonder in it all. I'm getting super sentimental, sorry. but I hope that you guys see that. I hope that even when I go out to my grandmother's house and she has a lake on a few acres of land, it's beautiful out there. And you walk around the lake and you hear the sounds of the frogs croaking, and you see birds coming in and ducks and things like that. There's a value in that, I think. And that's why people like to live by water. They like to live in the environment. Okay? And then, of course, there's the instrumental value. This is worth established due to an item's necessity as a tool or instrument that is needed to accomplish a goal. This is more like the monetary value that we have in things, where things are valuable because we can use them. Okay? We take advantage of this type of thing. The environment gives humans provisions, which are goods produced by the ecosystem. I don't know if you guys realize this, but the ecosystem gives us most of what we have. Okay? The environment that we live in gives us most of what we have. Things as complex as drugs, certain compounds that we derive from organisms, and things as simple as just the food that we produce. This all comes from the environment. So any natural product, if you guys have something that says it's like naturally flavored, or something that the tires on your car, those are from a rubber tree plant. Literally, the rubber that we have is from a plant. Synthetic or non-synthetic ropes, wood door. I mean, like I'm just looking at around the room right now. You can't go into a place without experiencing the nature that this place is derived from. Okay, I can't look at my desk and not see the wood, even if it's just the outer facade. I can't not see the wood that some tree enabled this desk to be created. It's an amazing thing. Okay, and again, those are called provisions. So again, I think this is the last slide. So the other some other things that the environment gives us and why we should be concerned about this: regulating services. Okay, nature regulates itself, which is a great thing, because could you imagine? I mean, we have trouble regulating anything. If you're from Illinois, you really know what I'm talking about. We have trouble regulating, just healthcare or pretty much any process the government tries to regulate. It's difficult. Okay, it's difficult to do. And we don't do a great job at it. Luckily, could you imagine if we had to take care of all the carbon in the air? Okay, we're trying to limit the amount of carbon we're putting in the air, but could you imagine if we had to take care of it? Luckily, nature does that for us through photosynthesis. It would be really hard if we had to come up with all the water that we have, that we didn't just have naturally occurring. Right now it's raining outside. We have naturally occurring fresh water literally falling from the sky. Okay, if we didn't have that, I think there'd be a big concern, because one of the things that we need every single day is water. And then, of course, we have support systems, things that nature just naturally gives us that help support ourselves, as well as the ecosystem that nature's put in place. Things like bees and other animals that pollinate our crops. We don't have to pay a bee to do that. Okay, that's kind of nice. It's kind of nice that hummingbirds go from flower to flower and pollinate trees so that we can get forests. Snakes and spiders act as pest control. Could you imagine the amount of mice that would be running around all the time if the snakes didn't exist? The amount of flies that we would have if we didn't have spiders? And I know, I killed a spider yesterday. My wife screamed in the bathroom. Okay, we all hate spiders. But trust me, spiders help us. They help the ecosystem. They help the environment. All of this stuff costs trillions of dollars if we had to put a monetary value on it. The things that nature gives us for free cost lots and lots of money. So it's beneficial to us to protect nature so that then we could protect ourselves. Because it would be, right now there are people, sadly, that are developing robotic bees that can go and pollinate orchards so that we can still have apples and oranges and grapes and things like that. We're doing that because we're scared that the colony collapse disorder is going to continue and bees are going to eventually become extinct. That would not only mean no more honey, which is sad in itself, but it would mean no more pollinators for our crops. And that would be a devastating thing. That means that we would then have to develop some sort of system to pollinate crops manually. It would be labor intensive. It would take resources. It would cost money. All of our food would become more expensive because we'd have to pay some dude to come out, or girl to come out and pollinate our crops with their drones of honeybee robots. I don't know. It's a weird future. I don't want that future. I want the ecosystem to do it for me for free. All right, guys, listen, that's all we're going to cover today. We will touch base next time. All I want you guys to do today is get these notes down. You don't have anything else. Make sure you take quality notes because we might have a notes quiz or something like that. So make sure that you guys get these down. Guys, stay safe, stay healthy. I'll see you next time.